Help support AMTV by becoming a patron, an AMTV staff member, and following us over on Twitter.
Hi there guys, it's Martyn here, and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about food, specifically junk food, but not just food itself. We're talking about junk food adverts. Now, when I was growing up as a kid in the late 90s and early 2000s, adverts for junk food on TV were quite ubiquitous, really. I'd always see them if I was watching any channel that offered adverts, you know, things for like McDonald's, KFC, Burger King, certain cereals that were rammed with sugar, lots of different kinds of sweets, etc. But, you know, as I got older, things started to change, and there is something coming now that aims to change the game on junk food advertising here in the UK even further. I saw this article from the BBC that says a ban on junk food TV adverts before 9 PM is to come into effect next year. Now, here in the UK, we have something called the watershed, so anything after 9 PM, that's when you'll hear swearing on TV, programs that depict, like, very explicit things, for example. That is the watershed. Anything before 9 PM can't be shown on British TV. And the aim seems to be to move junk food adverts to after 9 PM. Let's have a read. It plans to be introduced from the 1st of October 2025. Labour said the watershed on junk food advertising would be enforced alongside a total ban on paid-for online adverts, both aimed at tackling childhood obesity. The Conservatives have previously committed to the ban in 2021 when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister, but it was pushed back to give the industry more time to prepare. Health Minister Andrew Gwynn said confirming the scope of restrictions and the dates they would be implemented provided clarity for businesses. So on the surface, I think this is generally a good thing. There is a lot of issues with childhood obesity, not just in the UK. This is definitely a worldwide issue. And again, when I was a kid, there were tons of these adverts advertising junk food and all that sort of stuff. I remember seeing the McDonald's ones all the time, and I always wanted to go. I mean, granted, when I was a kid, it was probably more for the toys and the Happy Meal than it was for the actual food, but the point still stands. Gwynn said the government wanted to tackle the problem head-on and without further delay. These restrictions will help protect children from being exposed to advertising of less healthy food and drinks, which evidence shows influences their dietary preferences from a young age, he said in a written statement to the Commons on Thursday. The pre-watershed ban was a pledge in Labour's manifesto during this year's general election campaign. Wow, a political party actually moving forward with something they wanted to do in their manifesto? Game-changing. The party also made a manifesto pledge to ban under-16s from buying high-caffeine energy drinks in England as part of a wider push to improve children's health. I mean, so far so good, because let's face it, that probably the kids of today are consuming too much junk food. You know, one of my jobs, I used to work with children, like it involved children from like anywhere as young as like 6 up to 16. And to be honest, it shocked me just how much junk food they would consume, like during their break times and stuff like that. It really flabbergasted me, and not in a good way. Continuing on, it says, under the proposals, there is a two-stage approach for defining a product that is considered less healthy for the purposes of the restrictions. This was originally referred to as products high in fat, salt, or sugar, or HFSS. In response to a 2022 consultation, the government said it recognised the need for greater clarity on the scope of the restrictions. It said further guidance will be provided to explain product categories with clearer examples of which food and drink items fall within each category. But I suppose the big question is to all of this, you know, I think a lot of people would welcome this, but the big question is, what exactly is going to come under this ban in particular? Because junk food is such a broad spectrum. There are some things that are very obviously junk food. You know, I think like 99% of people would agree. There are some products as well that I think some people wouldn't associate as junk food, but might fall under this. Well, thankfully, the BBC did a follow-up article asking just that question. What counts as junk food in the upcoming UK advert ban? It begins by reiterating what we just talked about, but also provides this staggering claim here that more than 1 in 5 children in England are overweight or obese by the time they start primary school, and that's suggested by government statistics. This rises to more than 1 in 3 by the time they leave. That is horrifying. Like, that is a very horrifying picture. And of course, there are several reasons as to why children might be on largely junk food diets. It might be the accessibility of them. There's research to suggest that people in poorer communities or less well-off communities are targeted by junk food a lot more in different realms of advertising, not just TV. There's a whole plethora of reasons. But to the point in hand, what food and drink might be banned? Well, under the new rules, a particular food will be banned if it meets 2 criteria. Firstly, if it's classified as less healthy on a government scoring system after its nutrients have been analysed, as we talked about. This includes salt, fat, sugar and protein as well. Secondly, if it falls into one of 13 categories created by the government. The first one is soft drinks, and I think this is a pretty obvious one. Soft drinks have long been targeted by various restrictions because naturally a lot of them contain very high amounts of sugar. This covers any product that contains added sugar, such as cola, lemonade and squash. It also includes fruit juice, smoothies and energy drinks. Now, colour me controversial, but I think introducing a pre-watershed ban on advertising for these sort of soft drinks isn't the end of the world. I've always thought, Coca-Cola, one of the biggest, most well-known brands in the world, not just in the UK, around the world. It's been going since 1886, nearly 150 years now. What need does Coca-Cola have to really advertise on TV anymore? I know every now and then you'll still see things pop up, and of course the famous Coca-Cola Christmas truck advert, that pops up every year. Well, I guess it won't do from next year, unless it's after 9 PM. But really, what use do these companies have of advertising on TV? Particularly the bigger brands, they're all well known. I guess if you're starting up a company, say you're starting up a new smoothie business or energy drink or fruit juice, you're new in the scene, it might be hard to get your name out there if you're not allowed to advertise on the telly before 9 PM. But I think this speaks to a greater scale of advertising that the TV industry is facing, we've talked about advertising peril, but we'll talk more about that a bit later in the video. Category 2 is savoury snacks, which is crisps mainly, but this also extends to crackers, rice cakes, tortilla chips, and Bombay mix. There are exemptions for flavoured nuts, dried fruit, and jerky. So already we're seeing in these categories, whilst they are defining different things, there are going to be exceptions to certain rules. Now, crisps, again, I kind of understand it. When I was a kid, I'd see crisp adverts all the time. They were everywhere for different brands here in the UK, like Walker's, Golden Wonder, all the different ones you see in the shops. But again, I think crisps like soft drinks are such just a ubiquitous thing that people pick up in the shops that what need is there really now to advertise on television for them? That's just my opinion. Category 3 is breakfast cereal, another obvious one, but it includes granola, muesli, porridge oats, and other items you'd find in the breakfast aisle of the supermarket. Now, when I was a kid growing up, I was raised primarily on Weetabix, which some would say is quite a boring thing to eat as a cereal. I always quite enjoyed it, but I remember I was never really allowed the high in sugar ones, things like Cocoa Pops. I remember that was the source of huge controversy at the time. But anything basically that was like a chocolatey based cereal, I think that was done at the time to try and get more kids to eat cereal, but they were very high in sugar, very high in other things as well. And I'd only be allowed that sort of stuff. Say if we were on holiday, it was like a really special treat. It wasn't something I consumed every single day. Category 4 is chocolates and sweets. This applies to the vast majority of items you'd find listed under confectionery, but it also includes popcorn and chewing gum. And, again, this is a very obvious one. I'm a bit surprised that chewing gum's on there. I know it's not necessarily the healthiest thing for you, but a pre-watershed ban on chewing gum does surprise me a little bit. But again, you go into any shop, sort of what chocolate you're looking for. I just think you don't need advertising nowadays, I think, to tell you what's out there in terms of your soft drinks, your breakfast cereal, your savory snacks, chocolates and sweets. Do you know what I mean? Especially with kids now, they're on all these different social media apps, particularly things like TikTok. They're going to find this one way or the other. They ain't watching the adverts on the telly. Category 5 is ice cream. Dairy and non-dairy products such as ice lollies are covered by this, as well as frozen yogurt, sorbet and gelato. Category 6 is cakes and cupcakes. Flapjacks, donuts and eclairs are also included in this category, but icing is exempted. Very interesting there. Again, it's funny to see what is exempted in each of these different categories and what is allowed. Category 7 is biscuits and bars. Protein and cereal bars are included in this, as are other products like wafers and toaster pastries. Now, this one was always funny to me because things like cereal bars, that was always presented to me as like a sort of healthier alternative to like biscuit bars and things like that. And yes, I'm sure they contain, one of those 4 things like sugar or salt, etc. But I'm surprised that cereal bars fall under that. Category 8 is morning goods. This includes croissants, pain au chocolat, and other pastries are the main foods covered here. But the category also extends to crumpets, scones, fruit loaves, and hot cross buns. Category 9 is desserts and puddings. Custard, jelly, and mousses are included, but there are exemptions for tinned fruit, cream, and syrups. Again, interesting exemptions there. Fruit, I guess they're always going to exempt that to a degree, because even though a lot of fruit is high in sugar and whatnot, they are presented as a much healthier alternative to a lot of the things we've talked about so far. 10 is yogurt. Any variety that has been sweetened is covered by the category as a non-dairy alternatives, probiotic yogurt and drinkable varieties. Number 11 is pizza, specifically pizza. Plain bases and garlic bread are exempted from this. Garlic bread's exempted, thank God. But otherwise, all sizes and types of pizza are included in this. Category 12 is potatoes. Plain and sweet varieties that have not been cut or cooked are exempt, but several other potato-based products are included, such as chips, hash browns, and is that croquettes? Croquettes? I don't know how you say that. But chips, yeah, I mean, chips was the big one. Even when I was growing up, I remember the whole school dinner situation, you know, when people said that school dinners for kids were too unhealthy, you know, allowing them to get chips every day. So putting a ban on that sort of thing, at least in pre-watershed advertising, kind of makes sense. Ready meals, a broad category that covers anything intended to be eaten as a main meal, often after being reheated, and requires no further preparation. It also includes sandwiches or burgers. Ready meals, man. When I started university a very long time ago now, I practically relied on ready meals for a bit because, you know, a lot of students do. You know, you're out there, if you don't necessarily know how to cook yet, or you know very little, a ready, you know, something you can buy, whack in the microwave for 5 minutes and then eat it. It's an easy one, especially when you're on an intensive course. But, you know, they do contain, is it MSG they contain a lot of? They contain a lot of, like, fat, again, and salt, and all the things that this is targeting. So, again, I understand from that perspective why adverts for that are being banned pre-watershed. I didn't know they even did advertisements for it, but, you know, there we go. Other foods also exempted from the ban include infant formula and baby food. I mean, you know, that makes sense. Weight control products, meal replacement products, food supplements, and drinks used for medicinal purposes. It goes on saying, are there other junk food restrictions? It says an advert ban is not the first government policy designed to help people eat less junk food and generally consume fewer calories. That has been introduced in recent years. Restrictions implemented in 2009 meant junk food could not be shown during the broadcast of programs aimed at under 16s. I remember that coming into effect. I was a teenager at the time, so I don't think this really impacted me anymore. I wasn't watching as much TV where this would be targeted. But again, I think this was an extremely good move. I can't tell you the amount of times, particularly at the weekends, I'd switch over to ITV, watch the programming blocks like Toonatic and such like, and the amount, I'm telling you this, the amount of ads that catered to junk food was like at least 3/4 of every ad break. You know, if it wasn't McDonald's or one of the fast food chains, it was for some kind of sweet or savory thing. And, you know, they made those adverts very enticing. So I remember when this restriction came in, I thought it was an actually really good idea. The policy also prohibited celebrities and animated characters from promoting claims about how healthy these food products were to children of primary school age and under. That was the thing as well of the old ads. You'd have these familiar faces or these quirky, cool animated characters being like, hey, you know, come and buy this. It's actually not that bad for you. When, you know, if you look into it or if parents looked into it, it was pretty bad. A tax on soft drinks was announced in 2016. By 2019, it had helped remove around 45,000 tonnes of sugar from drinks sold in Britain. That's according to Public Health England, because manufacturers changed their recipes to lessen the sugar content, which then reduced the tax they had to pay on the sales of their drinks. You know, so they did it because they had to. But again, I remember that coming into effect. I was a uni student by then, and it didn't really impact me that much because I guess at that point, when the sugar tax came in and all that sort of stuff, if I still wanted to buy a Coke, I was going to buy a Coke. Do you know what I mean? Regardless if it was that slightly bit more expensive. In April 2022, it became a legal requirement for hospitality businesses that employed at least 250 staff, like restaurant and cafe chains, to print how many calories were in each dish on their menu. Again, that's not something I personally look at too much, but it is important for a lot of people, and I think it's only a good thing it's come in. That same year, medium to large supermarkets in England were also stopped from displaying certain unhealthy food and drink in particular areas. Now, it might seem that we're pretty restrictive in the UK. You know, from all we've talked about there, it seems like we've got a firm iron grip on this. But the question is posed here, do other countries have similar bans? The UK government first began discussing the need to limit junk food advertising in the 1990s. A 2001 report by the National Audit Office showed obesity in England had trebled in the past 20 years at that time. So from the 1980s through to the new millennium, obesity had gotten a lot worse here. Shortly afterwards, the UK's chief medical officers called obesity a time bomb, warning that otherwise healthy lives would be cut short and NHS costs would increase. But other countries are also considering a ban on TV adverts for junk food aimed at younger people. Norway, for example, is going to ban marketing aimed at under 18s for products like soft drinks, sweets and ice cream, which, yes, I think is a good move, but it just spans back to this question. What difference is it going to make? I'll round off on this towards the end of the video, but I just think with the things like the soft drinks, the sweets, the ice cream, the crisps, all that sort of stuff, a ban on TV advertising, how much is that actually going to do? Portugal has restricted the advertising of unhealthy food on TV and radio at broadcast times when at least 25% of the audience is made up of under 16s. Okay, so maybe like during the mornings if they've got kids programming on, or maybe just after school if they have a after-school programming block as well. The EU published a report in 2023 recommending that member nations adopt restrictions on junk food marketing targeting under 18s across all media platforms. The policy has not been approved yet by the European Parliament. Yes, deliberations. But I think, banning this marketing on all platforms isn't necessarily a bad thing. And again, just to round off, these products are so ubiquitous, like the soft drinks, the crisps, etc. If you want to get it, you're going to get it. Even children, if they don't see the advertising, if they go shopping with their parents or if they're hanging out with their friends and they want to nip into the corner shop, anything like that, they're going to see these products. They're going to want to buy these products if they have the means to. And again, the obesity issue, there's a whole reft of reasons, junk food advertising definitely being one of them, but there's a lot of social and economical factors that play into this as well. But I think, even these small restrictions, so pre-watershed ban on junk food advertising here in the UK, I think that can only be a good thing. Again, as to how much impact it's actually going to have, we'll have to wait and see in the coming years. I mean, they say if a sugar tax helped remove 45,000 tons of sugar within 3 years, that's good, but ultimately, is this curb on advertising really going to stop, specifically kids, because this is who it's aimed at, but is it really going to stop them from buying these things? I think we have to do better as well, because I remember in school, there were vending machines at one point where you could buy Coke and all that sort of stuff, and there's a lot of schools that still have that, sixth forms as well. So I think it's not, the onus isn't just on the kids wanting this stuff. I think we as the adults, as the grown-ups, we have to do better as well, and the institutions have to do better that look after children, again, like the schools and stuff. Because again, when I was raised, it was always soft drinks, all that sort of stuff. It was always sold to me by my parents as a treat. It was like, you can have one at the weekend, or you can have a bowl of Cocoa Pops when we're on holiday and stuff like that. And of course, when you're a kid, you think, oh man, come on, all my friends are having this stuff. You feel like you're missing out. But now looking back as an adult, it was actually probably the right thing to do. But yes, it does mean that, we've had a lot of classic advertising. From an advertising standpoint, we've had a lot of classic adverts that have come from the junk food realm. But in terms of their impact on society, you can hardly say a lot of them left a positive mark. And I'll be interested to see what adverts do come, because again, post 9 PM they can be shown on TV from next October. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of adverts are put out there, and if some companies might stop advertising on TV altogether. Because this is the broader problem with advertising on TV. We've seen that as the world moves to the more streaming, more online model, less people are consuming terrestrial television, advertisers start getting a bit of itchy feet. And especially in terms of the audience, if you're going to advertise one of your biggest brands, you're going to put a lot of money into advertising. But if then not a lot of people are actually watching it, and if you're having even less engagement after the fact, you're going to think, well, what's the point? I'll just do it online over the internet, or I'll do it elsewhere. I just think if you're going to do it like Norway's suggesting, I think it needs to be across all mediums, really, in terms of advertising. And some people will cry censorship and that it's a choice and stuff like that. But again, for some people, it's a choice. Like me, it's a choice. If I want to go buy a bottle of Coke, if I want to have a whole bar of chocolate to myself, I can choose to do that. But for some people, again, I said there's social, economical issues, because that's just the fact of life. The choice factor is there, but I'd argue it's a lot less reduced. There's a lot less options for people. So I think helping, create healthy alternatives, accessible alternatives, is the right way to go. But that's all for this video. Thank you very much for watching. A little bit different, I know, but still linked to, the TV world in some way. But let me know what you think about this. Do you think this move is a good idea, banning junk food ads before 9 PM? Do you think it's actually going to have any positive difference? Do you remember any adverts from when you were younger that, inspired you or made you want to get that junk food? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like on it. It really does help us out. And subscribe as well, because we'd love to have you aboard here with us. In the meantime, I've been Martyn from AMTV. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Thank you to our patrons for helping to support the show, and a special thank you to Macra, Bruce Danton, Derek Chambers, Shaun Knock, Daud Khan, Liam De-Maine, Trev Hughes, Ajmac 200017, Deck, Evan Hart 41, Jen, Traffi, Tim Ripley, Mr. Eurovision 1986, Ted Elliott, Marnanel Thurman, John Wakefield, Kieran Bolton, and 40-something Manchild are AMTV staff members.